Top story this week, Cyprus is fucked. I mean, it is fucked. Cyprus, Andy, is the sunny Mediterranean island of 1.1 million people where, for the last few decades, hard-working British people have gone on vacation to vomit in the streets. It's one of the smallest members of the EU, a sleepy little place, but it might want to consider waking the up right now because it's currently in the middle of a financial nightmare. The EU has seen some financial shitstorms over the last half a decade, but Cyprus may be about to unleash a fiscal tornado so huge that we may wake up having landed on a witch and dancing down the road with a talking lion, a scarecrow, and a weird squeaky guy with a metal face.
God, it reminds me of my stag night.
This all began last weekend when Cyprus agreed a bailout deal with European authorities and the IMF. So far, so tolerable. Next thing you know, Cypriots are protesting in the streets, and all the financial institutions are closed in fear of a full-scale It's a Wonderful Lifestyle run on the banks, but without a friendly Jimmy Stewart to calm everyone the down. No, Stavros, you've got it all wrong. Your money's not here. It's in Constantina's house, and Ibrahim's house, and 100 others. I beg of you not to do this thing. So, how did this happen? Cypriots are a warm, friendly people, as long as you don't mention Turkey in conversation with them. And for people to nearly riot on that scale, you'd need to mention Turkey both extremely loudly and a lot.
Well, it is kind of fascinating. Another kind of chapter in the exciting sequences of European bailouts. Of course, began with the Here Goes Nothing 2008 campaign, then the Vomiting Good Money After Bad tour of 2009, and the Fingers Crossed, it can't get that much worse, surely, of 2011. The problem is Cyprus was apparently doing quite well for a bit, even after the financial shit tornado had kicked off in other parts of Europe, had good growth, low unemployment. But by 2011, they'd reached a stage where Cyprus's banks' combined assets were worth 8 times the annual national income, which sounds quite handy until you realise that those assets were almost entirely pretend, largely made up of loans that they'd made to places like Greece, which had no money to pay those loans back.
Greek debt, Andy, as we all know, is a spicier debt. That is one messy money moussaka.
So when the financial plates got smashed at the wedding between Greece and bankruptcy, Cyprus was left with a fraction of the pretend money that it was kidding itself that it actually had. And a bailout was needed. And the way the Cypriot government decided to go about these things was by essentially punishing the victims of the economic disaster. Because they came up with this scheme to tax people's savings. Now, I know around Europe recently, John, there's been a sense that people should, that the people responsible should be made to pay, and maybe there was a bit of a language barrier issue, but the Cypriot government misinterpreted this as it should be the people who have been responsible being made to pay, and they tried to raid people's savings. They're now having to come up with a plan B after the public called bullshit in a fairly major and vocal way on plan A. It's, I don't know, I'm not an economist, John, but as you said, the little Mediterranean island has jumped aboard the bonkers bailout bandwagon, calling it Athens, Dublin, Madrid, Lisbon, and all stations to Fisk Oblivion Parkway.
But basically, the plan was all bank depositors with over $130,000 in their accounts would immediately get just under 10% of that confiscated, and smaller accounts would get around a 6.75% confiscation. It was to be called a one-off upfront stability levy. But
lovely euphemism.
Yeah, isn't it great? But the people of Cyprus seem to see it as a one-off gigantic f*** you. So, to be fair, the depositors would have got shares in the Cypriot banks in return. But, to be even fairer, those shares would be completely worthless if those banks then went under. So, to prevent a run on the banks, all Cypriot banks have been shut and are unlikely to open until next Tuesday to try and prevent mass withdrawals. And all Cypriot bank managers are currently hiding inside the linings of their sofas. There have been long lines forming at ATMs, but cash in them has been rapidly running out. And Cyprus seems to have essentially reached a fork in the road, Andy. Quickly renegotiate a solution which is satisfactory to no one, or go full Mad Max. Get some motorbikes, get some crazy outfits with spikes on the collar, and just go f***ing crazy. And I honestly think people there are 50-50 on which way to go at the moment.
Well, Chris has just broken some exciting news to me, that his parents live in Cyprus.
Yeah.
Oh, they do?
They do. They're in England at the moment. They're going back on Sunday, and bit by bit, they're taking the towels and the clothes out of the bag and throwing dollars and sterling into the suitcase instead. It'll only take a couple of bags to like literally be able to save the country.
If the bailout goes through, and it's like 10 billion euros worth of bailout, that basically one of your parents is going to be owned by Germany.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
I'd like to say that I'd be proud of them. And I think it's an important thing for my dad, I think, to just front up and accept that
he is now
he's now owned by Angela Merkel.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Chris, he should feel nicht so good about that. Such a beautiful language.
Schlecht.
Perhaps unsurprisingly, Cyprus's parliament rejected this whole proposition on Tuesday with 0 votes in favour. 0. It's not easy to get 0 votes for anything, Andy. Usually you'll get one person vote for something, even if it's just because they think it will be funny. But 0 votes, that takes an almost impressive ability to piss literally everyone off. So, why did the European Bank try to go in so hard on Cyprus all of a sudden? Well, part of the reason seems to be the bank accounts themselves, because of the estimated 68 billion euros in total held in Cypriot bank accounts, about 40% belongs to foreigners, and not just Chris's parents. Most of them are thought to be Russians. And at first, that seems a little bit weird. Then, that seems a little bit suspicious. And then after that, it only seems suspicious. Because the widespread belief is that much of that money is at best dirty, and at worst, so laundered that it basically now qualifies as clothing.
Also, if it's that dodgy that it has to be laundered through Cyprus, when that is... I mean, if they're too ashamed of it, even to plough it into a football club, I mean, that really puts that in perspective.
A leaked report from the German Foreign Intelligence Service suggested that the main beneficiaries, because of this, from any Eurozone bailout of Cyprus, would be Russian oligarchs, businessmen and mafiosi. And that is thought to be the key reason why savers with money in Cyprus have been put into this horrendous situation. But
John, were they 3 different categories?
I think they're just 3 sides of the Russian personality. But it's worth noting that of all the groups in the world that you want to avoid pissing off, Russian mobsters are right up there at number 1. And Russia itself has come out strongly against this plan. President Vladimir Putin, a man who, shall we say, wears the cologne of the corruption in extremely heavy squirts, he's described the... I'm glad you like that, Adler.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. He described the plan as unfair, unprofessional and dangerous. Although, to be fair, that's basically also a description of himself. So much that it would function pretty well for him as a dating profile. Man, unfair, unprofessional and dangerous, seeks woman, late teens with an ability to keep her mouth shut for sexy business. And it didn't stop there. Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev warned that Russia may be forced to correct its relationship with Cyprus if the levy should go into effect. And it's that kind of threat, Andy, that kind of chilling Russian threat that will get a bill 0 votes on the floor of a house. Oh, this is such a beautiful island. It would give me such pain to be forced to correct my relationship with this. Your wife and family live here as well now. Oh, what a pity if I were forced to correct your house into a massive fire.
Yeah, the same way that Stalin corrected the membership lists of poetry societies.
Russia is now in a tricky position. So it has a vested interest in Cyprus not collapsing in on itself and taking the full Mad Max scenario. And it's not just the $40 billion in dodgy Russian money that's at stake, because Russia has also been using Cyprus, apparently, to funnel arms to Syria to help Bashar al-Assad go explosively medieval on his own people. And as if this couldn't get any crazier, and this might be good news for you, Chris, news broke earlier in the week that the UK flew in a plane stacked with €1 million in cash to Cyprus as a contingency measure for British personnel and their families if cash machines and debit cards should stop working in Cyprus. They loaded a plane with €1 million. Oh, that should calm down everyone in Andy. How could that go wrong? There's a plane somewhere in the country with €1 million in non-traceable notes. But what you should absolutely not do is form a mob to find that plane and loot it.
I can't believe they made that public. Like, hi everyone, here's a press release. We've got a plane with £1 million on it.
There must be a decoy. They must have been bringing a ship with 20 million in on the other side.
That might be true.
It just shows, John, that around the world, I think trust in the banking industry is at an all-time low. In Britain, people are increasingly miffed, particularly at RBS, a largely public-owned bank, still posting big losses and still paying big bonuses on the grounds that the losses aren't as big as they could be if we didn't pay such big bonuses. And that's basically how it works. Essentially, we are rewarding people for punching us in the face, but for doing so less hard than we're used to being punched in the face, and when the alternative is being smashed on the head with an anvil. And the whole situation in Cyprus, when we see the raids on, just low-level savings accounts, does continue to give the impression, not that we are just dust in the wind of history, but that we are custard powder in the explosive flatulence of economics. And when it goes wrong, we're the ones who get burnt, and the whole thing stinks.
So all of this, even as we speak right now, apparently Cyprus is hours away from a key vote on whether to go with whatever new package they're trying to negotiate or not. But essentially, Cyprus is right now teetering on the edge of a fiscal cliff, about to take a budgetary bungee jump. The Bank of Cyprus, the largest bank there, has said that the Cypriot economy is on the brink and desperately requires a liquidity lifeline, going on to say that the next move may prove its salvation or destruction. And the European Central Bank has given the nation until Monday to raise the funds it needs to secure a bailout, and if no plan B can be found, they may cut off funding to the island's banks, which will likely trigger their collapse and possibly the country's exit from the euro, and that is when pandemonium will be unleashed. And I am not talking about the popular new Japanese boy band featuring a bunch of kids dressed as pandas. So where next for Cyprus? Well, a new plan could include restructuring other Cypriot banks, maybe the use of pension funds, which would be like trying to put out a fire by throwing petrol at it, or otherwise maybe accepting the offer of some help from Cyprus's wealthy Orthodox Church. But perhaps the most audacious and, again, slightly frightening offer of all came from Gazprom, the gigantic, and I mean f***ing gigantic, Russian gas company, because they have offered to bail out the entire country of Cyprus in one go on their own, which wouldn't be difficult. Cyprus only needs around a $13 billion bailout, and Gazprom makes around $160 billion a year, so they could probably bail out Cyprus with the loose change they find in their Siberian tiger rugs. And all Gazprom wants in return, Andy, for this national bailout is for Cyprus to give it the exploration rights to the potential gas deposits in the Mediterranean. It's such a friendly offer. That is all we require from you, Cyprus. We would love nothing more than to help you out in your time of need. And we require in return nothing more than your delicious gas. Now, would you like to sign this contract, or shall I rip off your fingers, wrap them around this pen and sign it for you? I am fine with doing it either way.
Now that's got to be featuring in an animated movie at some point, that voice, John.
Russian mobster Smurf, yeah. Andy, for Smurfs 3. Got to make it more topical. The point is, Cyprus is fucked.